So we are going to get started. My name is Elizabeth Aloni. I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company in the New York metro area. We publish over 100 newspapers, magazines, websites throughout everywhere from Manhattan to Montauk. And today we are thrilled to have AARP here and this very important topic, protect yourself from romance schemes during the holiday season. And I'm going to introduce you to our panelists who are going to talk about romance scams, which are a significant concern, especially during the holiday season when people's emotions and they're feeling lonely, vulnerable, and we want to be able to give you some key warning signs and be able to help you protect yourselves. So first, please welcome Jarrod Randle, Supervisory Special Agent, Homeland Security Investigations. Jarrod is a special agent with Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, in Buffalo. HSI is the primary investigative arm of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, whose job it is to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle the transnational criminal organizations that threaten the safety and security of Americans, our institutions, and our infrastructure. Jarrod is a supervisor on the HSI Nickel City Financial Task Force that targets a broad range of financial crimes affecting the Western New York area, from interdicting the money laundering networks of drug trafficking organizations that exploit our local borders to arresting scammers that steal vast amounts of the hard-earned dollars belonging to our citizens and American businesses. Before becoming a supervisor, Jarrod spent 20 years as an HSI criminal investigator, prosecuting crimes that span borders, including drug smuggling, bulk cash smuggling, money laundering, financial fraud, and white-collar crimes, arms trafficking, and illicit weapons proliferation. Most recently, Jarrod's primary focus has been on tackling the rampant exploitation of our senior citizens at the hands of fraud investigations that operate from abroad. I feel safer just knowing you're here, Jarrod. Welcome.
Thanks
And
very
now,
much, Elizabeth.
yes, quite impressive. Thank you for all you do. Now, please welcome Kat Fisher. Kat has been the AARP Associate State Director of Community Engagement for upstate New York State since 2018. Kat works with members, volunteers, and staff on issues important to the 50-plus population and AARP's 2.2 million New York members and their families. Kat Fisher has led successful AARP campaigns in New York State on fraud and scams and has developed many local and virtual programs for AARP members and guests. Before joining AARP, Kat Fisher worked as an educator and advocate leading campaigns and organizing communities for several nonprofit organizations. Such important work. Thank you so much. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So let me share with everybody. I'm going to share with you our presentation.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kat Fisher. As Elizabeth said, I'm the Associate State Director of Community Engagement with AARP. I'm so happy that you're all on so we can share this important information. Hopefully you know that AARP is a membership organization, and our mission is to empower people to age as they wish. We offer education and resources on a variety of topics that are important to older adults, 50 and up. And we are a nonpartisan organization and advocate for public policy issues that are important to that group. One of our main areas of focus is fraud prevention. AARP Fraud Watch Network is a great resource to keep up on the latest scams. We have a national staff that works independently to research and offer educational resources, and we have state teams to push that information out into the community to help people stay informed, find support, and have a voice. Next slide. We know through our consumer research work and our own research that most people believe that scams only happen to older adults. The reality is that younger adults report losing fraud more often than older adults, a reminder that scammers know no bounds and target everyone. The important fact here to remember, though, is that older people lose more. Oftentimes, older people are the targets because we have more to lose. Next slide. So we're here to tell you today about the AARP Fraud Watch Network. It's a great resource to keep up on the latest scams. We have so many different resources, including the Fraud Watch Network, which you can find at aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. For news and information, you can sign up for scam alerts so that you can keep up to date on what new scams are out there. And you can also tune into our hit podcast called The Perfect Scam. It's an award-winning show that takes you into the inner workings of scams and shows us how they work. If you want to report a scam, find out if something is real or fake, or for help if you or a loved one have fallen victim to a scam, we invite you to call the toll-free AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline, where you can connect with trained fraud specialists. That number is 877-908-3360. You don't have to be a member or of any certain age to call. So I'm going to repeat that one more time, 877-908-3360. Next slide.
And I will also share this to everyone when you get that email from me in 24 hours as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Of course.
So we're so happy that you're here listening to this today. Scams are often successful because the scammer wants to get you into a heightened emotional state, what scammers themselves have referred to as getting them under the ether. Tactics include instilling fear or excitement, and in this case that we're focusing on today, even love. Once there, it's really hard to access our logical thinking, and then the scammer knows that they have succeeded. The criminal is using our own thought processes and emotions against us. And the way our brain works, emotion takes over and makes us all more susceptible. So AARP has done research in the area of how to identify a scam when it's coming at you. We've determined that most scams, not all, but most scams have 3 indicators. They come with a communication from out of the blue that puts you into a heightened state of emotion and contains some kind of urgency. So we're here today to talk about how a romance scam actually works. So I'm going to turn it over to Jarrod to tell us more about that.
Thanks a lot, Kat. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
You sound great.
All right. So I just want to touch on a little bit about how common dating is, specifically online dating or social media apps and dating. But first, let's just get into romance scams that you just touched on, Kat. Romance scams are becoming an enormous problem for all Americans. So today, like Kat mentioned, we're going to talk about protecting our hearts and our life savings for the holiday season. So what is a romance scam? It's a type of another term of scam called a confidence scam, which is simply a confidence scam is simply an attempt to defraud somebody after first gaining their trust. And it's really, both of these scams are really, confidence scam is just a type of romance scam, but they're both really just a directed form of social engineering. So romance scams occur when a criminal, usually these are criminal networks, they adopt some sort of fake persona or identity online, and they're seeking out victims to get their affection and their confidence. They'll give illusions of a friendship, a romantic relationship, a close relationship. They'll seem genuine, caring, really interested in you all of a sudden, with the intent to quickly establish a relationship, endear themselves, gain trust, and then start to prey upon these victims. They're gonna often pretend like they're serving in the military. They're employed in some trade-based industry outside the United States, or they have some sort of a medical emergency, unexpected legal fees, or what we're seeing a lot of lately is a great investment. So they prey upon victims by exploiting their innocence, their compassion, their vanity, their confidence, their naivety, irresponsibility, and oftentimes even their greed. So romance scams can target anyone. They're going to prey upon people looking for love, companionship, just friendship. Majority of the scams in recent years have been directed at older adults. That's why Kat is here from AARP. And these scams targeting older adults have devastating consequences. Some of the primary reasons for that is that older adults are the primary target group for various factors, loneliness, isolation. They might just be alone at an older age, whether it be divorce or loss of their partner. But this makes anyone susceptible to romance scams, particularly during the holiday season, no matter what the victim's age is.
Jared, how common are romance scams?
We're seeing them all the time. I mean, just to give you some statistics, the Federal Trade Commission is a federal agency. They keep track of a lot of these reports, as does the FBI. So last year in 2023, the number of romance frauds at any age group reported to the FTC 64,000 reports, and that's just really a drop in the bucket. During the calendar year of 2023, FCC took in 2.6 million reports of any kind of fraud, totaling over $10 billion. And 35% of that were victims over the age of 60, which accounted for $2 billion. So $10 billion just reported in 2023 to the FTC. And those are all Americans.
And I would imagine many of them are not even reported. I know Kat's going to talk about that more, but I would imagine like in the romance sector, people are embarrassed. I know Kat will talk about that later, but to hear those numbers and to know that there are so many more that aren't even being reported is significant.
Yeah, the vast majority of frauds aren't even reported to the FTC, the FBI, or anywhere, including local police departments. And it's really only a fraction. The FTC actually estimates that just with older adults alone, the actual loss in 2023 to fraud was $61 billion. That's what they estimate, wow, including unreported crimes.
What are some of the forms of romance scams?
You're going to see a variety of them, but they usually take on a lot of some pretty standard forms. They're going to be asked. I mean, they're going to reach out to victims that are on dating websites or dating apps that are on social media, specifically Facebook. Facebook is a haven for these predators. And they might even just reach out on a text message or even a phone call. These are professional criminal networks that mostly operate outside the United States, and they feel very bold to target American citizens because they feel safe from U.S. law enforcement. And so these scams are just there's a whole variety of them, but they're gonna have similarities. They're gonna strike up a relationship through one method or another, whether it's a phone call, a text message, Facebook, or a dating app. They're going to take an extreme interest in the victim, and then they're going to start asking for money at some point. It could be a family emergency, or there's some sort of need, and they can't access their funds, so they need the victim that they're talking to provide some funds, even if a lot of times they'll say, we'll pay you back. It's not going to happen. Or they have unexpected legal fees, business fees, travel fees. But what we're seeing a lot of lately is an investment opportunity. They'll strike up a relationship, and the conversation might go on for days or weeks, and then they might offer an investment. And let's make some money together is what they're going to tell the victim. And this gets me into what we're seeing is a real problem in America right now. It's called the pig butchering scheme. It's a type of fraud. It originated out in Southeast Asia, and it comes from the Chinese phrase, which means pig butchering. And these fraudsters, the way they see us, they're online predators, and the way they see us is prey, like a pig, and they want to fatten the pig before they slaughter. This is their term for fraud. This is the criminal's term, and this is how they see us. And what it really is, it's a combination of romance fraud and investment scams. And so they'll start it off with a friendship, confidence scam, a romance scam, and then it quickly turns into, hey, let's invest in something. And what we're seeing a lot of is they're providing this avenue to invest in cryptocurrencies.
How long did it take a scammer to move from dating, quote unquote, to scamming a victim?
I mean, they're trying to make as much money as they possibly can, as quickly as they can. But the good organizations are going to take their time. It could be days. It could be weeks. I can tell you one case from about a year and a half ago. We had a victim. He retired in his 50s, and he had saved up a nice $1.5 million retirement annuity. He was a divorcee with adult children, and he was on a Plenty of Fish website, and he met a beautiful Asian woman on that website, and they started to strike up a conversation. The conversation started with a video message after they kind of chatted for a little bit on a messaging app on Plenty of Fish. and he saw how beautiful she was, and then all the communications from there were diverted to different messaging apps. And these scammers really took their time. They talked to him for weeks before they were able to get $500,000 of his $1.5 million dollar annuity from him. And
Wow.
and the scam was really just, hey, let's get together. I can't wait to see you. They were planning a trip in Orlando, Florida. Mind you, that he had never met her, but they're going to lure the person in for a period of days or weeks. And then he was, within a month, he was out $500,000, and they were coming after the rest of it in this wonderful pitch to invest money together before they ever got together to meet each other. There's other scams. There's other scams where we've seen people, they're getting taken for 2-3 years at a time. And and they take everything from them. They'll make the victim, they'll take all their retirement, all their savings. When that's gone, they'll have them take out personal loans, refinance their house. They'll talk to them for 2 years, 3 years straight, and just keep it going. And then once they're done taking all the money they can from the victim, they'll turn them into what we call money mules, where they'll have them start opening accounts at various financial institutions and banks, and start using that to funnel other victims from across the country, their money to the fraudsters, ultimately overseas.
That's so scary. So, Kat, would you share with us some of the red flags that would indicate a scam?
Yeah, absolutely. So he's already mentioned a lot of this, but online dating can be, like you said, a safe way to meet people, but you have to watch out for some of these things for romance scams. Instant intimacy. All of a sudden, someone is professing their love very quickly. They're getting way too close, and it's way too intense. It hasn't actually gone through the normal phase of getting to know each other, where they're asking, lots of questions about your interests. It happens very, very quickly. Also, when the person starts requesting favors, so they're starting to build up trust slowly. And often what we see are people, if they get to the point where it's time to meet, they talk about being inaccessible and unavailable. They just can't meet right now, or they'll make a date and then cancel it. So having a remote job is often one of the tactics that scammers use. They say, oh, they're out on an oil rig, and they're out at sea, or they're doing some kind of job that makes them unable to come and verify their identity with you right there in person. And we hope that everyone practices safe dating, where you never go to a place one-on-one alone with someone that you don't know. But in this case, it's often the opposite, where people are not available to actually verify themselves because they claim to be at a remote job of some kind. Also, in addition to this investment thing that Jarrod talked about, a lot of times they invent these false emergencies that come up, like my car broke down, I need the money, or someone is sick or ill, or I need an operation I can't afford, or something like that. And oftentimes it might start out pretty small, like, oh, I need more data minutes on my phone to call you. So can you send me $20? And once they know that they've built that small trust with you, it can become bigger, even if it takes, like Jarrod said, months and months and years. If they're going to get $50,000 or $200,000 out of the person, they're willing to invest that kind of time. So they build trust slowly, and all of a sudden they're having these kinds of emergencies and need money.
I just want to scream, like, if someone does not meet you in person, don't give them anything.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. Also, like any kind of pressure, as soon as you feel, this should be a red flag, any kind of urgency or pressure, that should be a sign to you that something might be wrong. Also, sometimes they try to increase your isolation and ask you not to keep it private, and not to speak to family or to authorities about what's going on. Someone might want to ask them something that you have a gut feeling is inappropriate, and you might offer that you're going to go check it out and see if this is okay, and they'll discourage you from actually verifying it with anyone. And the last thing just reflects something that Jarrod just said. Oftentimes, once they run you out of your own resources, they can often involve you in their scheme to scam someone else, and that's called being a mule. So they might ask you to open an account on someone else's behalf, or start involving you in accepting money from someone else to then send to them so that you're the middle person. So all of these are really shifty tactics that you should be aware of.
Thank you. Jarrod, do you have any red flags to add?
Yeah, those are all spot on, Kat. And I can add a couple. I mean, a lot of times this is for anyone at any age, but when you see dating profiles, this is a warning for anybody that just seem too perfect, glamour shots, and just the person just seems too perfect. That should be a red flag for anybody. I mean, be cautious. You can be curious but ask a lot of questions. You know, dating profiles that seem too perfect. The scammers are really good at this. They're intentionally trying to bait people into it. To do that, they have to be attractive and alluring on these dating platforms. And Kat mentioned it, someone you've never met. Andy, I'd even go further. Someone you don't know well that professes an intense love for you, adoration for you. That's an immediate warning sign, especially if you don't actually have a relationship with them, an existing one. Kat mentioned they try to tell you not to tell other people. They isolate you. Don't do that. Don't ever make financial decisions when you're emotional, right? Another way that this appears is very simple. It might be text messages. Any unsolicited text messages you get should always be considered a warning for some form of fraud. Same with emails. But when you get these things from phone numbers you don't recognize or email addresses you don't recognize, they're poorly written. But they're going to start off with, hi, Amy, how are you doing? And you're not Amy. But then they'll parlay that and do, oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. They're very polite. I thought you were Amy, my good friend. And then what's your name? And they'll start trying to immediately get you into a conversation with them, preying upon, hey, I have some sort of issue, or I've got this or that. And they're going to try to move you potentially to another sort of platform. Those are all warning signs, unsolicited messages, or they try to introduce you to their family when you strike up an online relationship. That's an attempt to legitimize themselves when they're really just scammers. And you always have to be aware of that. So one other thing I'd like to hit on as a major warning sign: if you are talking to somebody that you met on a dating platform or social media or text message or phone, whatever it is, a cold call, whatever they're trying to convince you to pay, and if you've found yourself emotionally invested, one of the major warning signs is strange payment methods. So gift cards, cryptocurrency, gold bars. These are a lot of the things that we're seeing. Giving cash to friends or couriers or Uber drivers. These are all non-typical ways of making payments. Legitimate people, companies, and the government agencies, they don't require payments in the form of gift cards, gold bars, cryptocurrency. Those are all signs of a scam. And if it's an investment that they're trying to convince you to make, and you don't know anything about it, don't jump in. Seek advice from people that are friends, family, trusted confidants, your own banks. AARP is a great resource, senior centers. Those are strange payment methods is a glaring sign of a fraud.
Thank you. Kat?
Great. So we have a video here that will also repeat some of these things and bring it to life. If you could play that, that would be great.
Meeting a romantic partner online can be great, but it takes an extra dose of skepticism to stay safe from scammers. Here are some warning signs that a romance scam is underway and the person you are talking to wants more than your love. You meet someone online, and after just a few interactions, they profess strong feelings for you. Proceed with caution, especially if they want to take you off the site where you met and chat only by text or another platform. Here's another red flag. Once they gain your trust, which may take months or even years, they might share a hard luck story and ask you to send money or perhaps a gift card to help pay a bill. Don't send any money or buy gift cards at their request. If you do, they will keep asking for more. Con artists have latched onto gift cards as a convenient form of payment in their scams because they are virtually impossible to trace. For more tips on how to spot romance scams, go to aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork.
Great, thank you. If you go on to the next slide, one of the important things that we can do to arm ourselves is to know that it's always okay to say no. This seems obvious, right? But it's not. Many of us were raised in a time and an era when the advice that we got was to be polite and be considerate, and also to be helpful and to be generous. But it's really important that once you feel pressure, you have a feeling that something is not right, and you notice any of these red flags we've talked about, especially a request for money, it's important to be able to say no. So the best way to say no is with one word, no, or to hang up and end immediately, break off the connection. But if you've been asked for money, AARP always says break off contact immediately. You don't need to explain. Knowing how and practicing a refusal can help. So here are some things you might say just so that you can hear this language so that it's there and ready to access when you need it. I'm not interested. Don't contact me again. I don't date people who work remotely. I need to verify this. I'm not comfortable with that. This is not working out. I absolutely will not send money to people I'm dating. So it's really important to know that you have the right to say no. You don't owe anyone an explanation. And that no is a complete sentence, just one single word. So we also recommend that you adopt that as a policy, never sending money to people that you're dating, and always verify everything you can. Next slide.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, Kat, those are great refusal scripts. And some of those refusal scripts, those are great tactics to use to kind of flush out whether or not this is a scam. And then you can kind of go from there. When you say, hey, I'm gonna have my son or my daughter take a look at this. I'm gonna have my neighbor, my friend. Let me talk to my friends at the senior center. I'm gonna talk to my bank about this first, my attorney, and see what they say. What is their response to that? If they're gonna start then giving you the tactic and convincing you not to tell anybody, to keep it a secret for whatever reason, that's just another sign that it's probably a fraud. And just remember, it's your hard-earned money. It's your retirement, it's your life savings. You worked for it your whole life, so keep it. You might need it. Your family might need it one day. Don't just give it away to professional criminals. Just don't do it. They're out there all day long, every day. So you just don't trust it. You need to be cautious. Ask a lot of questions.
Seems like these are good rules when dating online generally, that you just say to yourself, okay, I'm
Yes.
not going to date anyone who works remotely. I'm not going to date anyone who asks for money. Just making those rules, just like you would of any of your other yes and no checklist that we all have when dating. If that would be a good one to add on there. How else can we protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe, Jarrod?
There's a variety of ways. A lot of it is just it's relying on other people that you trust. If you find yourself in a relationship with someone online, you want to rely on the people that you trust, the people that you actually have relationships with, your friends, your relatives, cousins, family members, friends, neighbors, like I said, senior centers. But when you're actively looking for a relationship or dating, you want to research the person's name, their photograph that they provide to you, the profile information, using online search tools like Google, for instance, and just add the word fraud or scam at the end of it. If they're giving you some sort of a sales pitch, mentioning some sort of an investment, an investment in a company, Google that, the name of that company with the word fraud or scam, and see what comes up, and just do a little research. Make sure you go slowly and cautiously. Just know that these are professional scammers. They go to work every day to take the money that we earn working every day. That's what they do. They're professionals, and they do this for a living. So just take your time, be cautious, always be skeptical. Again, don't give out your personal information to people you really don't know. Don't just accept friend requests from people you don't know. That's something to be wary of. I always give the example. My father, he's in his 80s, had a wonderful career, raised a big family, but he doesn't really know how to use Facebook. So he was telling me for like about a year and a half, hey son, did you get my message? And I would check my phone or message. No, I didn't get it. It was something about politics or current events or something. And he was telling me this for a year and a half. And finally I was like, Dad, where are you sending these messages? And he thought a text message was Facebook Messenger. And he found a different Jarrod Randle that lived in Iowa, not Buffalo, New York. And he was sending him messages and links to articles and stuff for a year and a half. And he just didn't know how to use the platform. So just just make sure you know who you're dealing with when you're messaging with people.
That's a good point. Use the holidays to share with some of the people in your family who might not be as savvy on how to be savvy. Your dad was
Yeah.
lucky that Jarrod Randle wasn't a criminal, but you could be
Right.
unlucky and reach out to someone who is. So helping your family, I think that's a great point too. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
And
oh, sorry, go ahead, Jarrod.
yeah, no, that's okay.
I was just going to ask Kat about victimhood, because that's a really big reason why we were talking about earlier about how people don't report this. So Kat, can you talk to us a little bit about that? Oh, you're still on mute, Kat.
Yes, thanks. As you can imagine, people are embarrassed once they find that they've been victimized. And some of it comes from how our culture treats victims of romance scams and fraud. If your house is broken into, everyone has this empathy and compassion for you. But if you were the victim of a scam, oftentimes people blame the victim. And we at AARP try to draw attention to this and to remind people we do have some control over how we talk about scams. So oftentimes you'll hear the person blame themselves. I can't believe I fell for this, or how could I be so stupid? Or even hearing other people say this to you, like, geez, how could you be so gullible? So that's something that we want to change, and to remind people that these folks who do this are working as criminals. They are criminals and they're trying to perpetrate crime. So to blame yourself is really not accurate and not helpful. Next slide.
It's their full-time job, right?
It is.
That's right.
And from our research, we confirmed that we do treat crime victims differently depending on the crime. With violent and property crimes, we feel empathy for the victim, whether someone got held up on the street at gunpoint or their home was broken into. And all of that is scary. But when it's a scam or a fraud, we don't think of the criminal first for some reason. So it's really important to try to remember to keep the focus on the criminal. So next slide, please. We want to let you know that AARP has a fraud watch network helpline that you can call. So I have given that number and it'll be sent out to you after this. You can call Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. A toll-free number to talk about things and figure out, is a scam happening and where to report it and what to do and how to protect yourself. I saw some questions in the Q&A that would be good for our toll-free number. And we also have a victim support group. So if you do find that you were the victim of fraud, instead of feeling like you have to keep it secret or deal with it yourself, we do encourage you not only to report, but to join a support group to learn how to gain that trust back, to sort it out and understand it, how to reach out and find support. You can imagine that if someone gives away their life savings, this could really make their family angry. If someone, sort of voluntarily sends their money from their account to someone else, people might lack a certain amount of compassion because they did that. This is where we can come in to help offer fraud victims support. So we have these hour-long virtual sessions that anyone can use across the country, and it's a safe space to talk with trained people. And we wanted to make sure that you know about that at aarp.org/fraud support.
Wow, that's really phenomenal, because it can help people from being embarrassed and worried about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for this. This is really important. I'd like to be able to get to some of our questions, because we do have a lot of questions in the chat. Someone wanted to know, and maybe Jarrod, you know this, how many scammers were actually caught last year? This person was asking last year, but I don't feel too hopeful about that, because
No, and nor should you. I don't have the data on how many were actually caught, but I can tell you it's a small percentage. So when we get our task force, HSI is very operational. All we do is criminal investigations. So this is we're doing this every day, and we get one of these reports just about every week, and they're almost always elderly, but not always, but predominantly. And the first thing we try to do is get the money back. That's the first thing we try to do, and we always stress to to potential victims, we just stress to the public that the sooner this gets reported to us, the better. And the first place you should go is your police department. And a lot of times they'll reach out to us if it's something that they can't handle. And often they can't, but they'll be seeking our assistance, and we jump right away. First thing we try to do is get the money back, and then the second thing we're trying to do is trying to arrest somebody. And I can tell you, it's not very common. We have arrested several people over the course of the last couple of years investigating these things, but believe it or not, the charges aren't that heavy. We're talking attempted grand larceny or grand larceny on the state side, and on the federal side, we try to get them with various forms of fraud and conspiracy, wire fraud, bank fraud. But the dollar value for federal charges has to be very high for the suspects when we arrest them to actually face serious charges, well over $1 million, and a lot of times these are, 20,000, 60,000. It's one victim, and it takes us a long time to put a conspiracy together, identify an organization, and then of course these organizations are overseas. You can imagine the effort it takes to try for us to. We have a long arm. HSI is all over the world, just about every embassy across the globe. But there's a lot that goes into putting charges on foreign bad actors and extraditing them to the United States. So it's a very low percentage, but we always try.
Great. Yeah, no, it's we want to help you on the front end. That's what this conversation is all about, right? So someone else wanted to know, can dating scammers do something to harm you if you already gave them your phone number? So I guess they're concerned about, being able to be tracked down or
Well, it's a good idea to scrub your online profile and make sure that you don't have your address listed. When you go on vacation, be careful who's getting those Facebook posts about your vacation. I'm out of town. It's a big sign that says, I'm not here. But one of the best things you can do is you can block numbers. So find out how your phone operates so that you can block numbers. Yeah. And also, if you see a number like Jarrod said that you don't recognize, just don't answer it. If someone needs to contact you, they can find other ways of contacting you. There is, everybody knows about this by now, that there's spoofing software that allows people to access your address book with your phone and then use a friend's number to text you and ask for something. This actually happened to my dad, where one of his friends was asking him for a gift card for him to send his daughter and asking my dad to go get it. And if my father hadn't had the presence of mind to then call his friend, he was thinking it was true. When he called his friend, he actually just wanted to talk to him more about it. He didn't know it was a scam. But thank goodness that his friend said, "What are you talking about? I never sent you anything like that." But it's because it came from the text number that was familiar. It looked like his friend. So as far as I know, blocking, you can block people on your phone, and you can just don't answer or don't reply, like Jarrod said, to a text that comes in that just says hi, or that just says anything if you don't recognize the number, because oftentimes they are bots that are just going through phone numbers. They're put on a program where they just call through or text through different numbers until they find someone to reply and they know, oh, it's an active number. So just be careful of that.
And when you do post your phone number too, or it's out there, it's what fraudsters have called over many decades a suckers list. So a lot of times when victims are responding to these fraudsters, any mechanism, or they've actually paid these fraudsters, now they're on a list that gets sold and resold and sent all around these fraud operations overseas. And now you're on the list, and so expect more to come in. And like Kat said, there's ways to block it. There's also the do not call registry at the FTC. You could Google do not call registry, and the website will come right up. But also a lot of times, just keep in mind if you do fall prey, or somebody that fell prey and gave a little bit of personal information, your address or your phone number, just keep in mind these people are fraudsters. What they're really after is your money. So report it to your local police and your friends and family. But what they're really after is not really coming to harm you. They really just want your money. So just keep that in mind.
Got it. Someone wanted to know too that, if they give you a local phone number, can that help the authorities catch the bad person?
If they give a phone number for one of the scammers,
if the scammer gives a local phone number, can that help the police catch them?
Like Kat mentioned, a lot of these things are spoofed phone numbers. They're using Google Voice. They're using other types of software where they're actually calling from an overseas number, and they're making it look like it's your local number. They know what number what area code and even what your exchange is, the first 3 digits of the 7-digit number. So they're going to be able to spoof that. And with online software and technology, it's all too easy to do that. It's if they're able to capture, if they're able to find a relative, let's say in the grandparent scheme, we see this where they'll find the grandkid's phone number and they'll be able to spoof that actual phone number. So now when that grandkid's calling grandma and grandpa, it's coming up as the grandkid's actual phone number. So you have to just know how powerful technology is today. They're making themselves look legitimate. They're trying to bring people's guard down as soon as they can, so they can take as much money from us as possible.
With AI, it's even scarier. I got together with my family and we came up with code words,
That's
because I
great.
have, teenage children and they could easily make phone calls on their own, right? So
Yeah,
if,
great.
any of us could be fooled by that. So a family password can be helpful. Hank wanted to know what percentage of the victims and scanners ever meet in person?
It's
That
I,
typical?
I'm sorry.
Well, Jarrod, if I may, first of all, we don't know how many scams are actually happening. So that's kind of a hard statistic to come up with because they're so underreported. So that's one problem. It would be kind of a flawed statistic if we did say, because the numbers that actually get reported, are so much less. But I don't know what else you have on that, Jarrod.
Yeah, it's it does exist, and I'll give you an example of a recent case from last year. It does exist, but it's very rare. You got to understand these scammers, if they're showing up in person, they can be more easily identified by us, by law enforcement. They don't want to do that. Your vast majority, they're operating from another country. They're operating from Nigeria, from India, from Southeast Asia, China, Laos, Cambodia. They're operating from the UAE and even Canada, believe it or not. They feel safe from that border, but there are some, whether it be gypsies or it be other groups, that they have a tendency to get more bang for their buck if they do meet the victims. Last year we had one local victim. She was in her late 40s, a divorcee. She had a very successful professional career, and she had a lot of money. And she met a UK individual who was actually legally in the United States on a visa. He overstayed his visa, but he got here legally, and he was traveling around scamming people. He would start with a romance scheme, and then he started selling tickets, season tickets, box seats to the Chicago Bulls to all these people. And he even set up a shell corporation and a bank account in the United States, and would meet with these people periodically in person at a local coffee shop. You might take them out to dinner. Of course, usually the victim was paying. It does happen. It's very rare though, but it's something to be cognizant of. You want to be able to meet people in person, but you also want to have a real relationship with them and do a little bit of due diligence before you actually start giving anybody your money.
I think that question leads to the next question, which is that people are concerned. Is it okay to meet people online? Now, I can tell you, I met my late husband and my fiance online. So it can be safe, but I don't know the statistics. Is it, Jarrod, in your line of work, would you still think that that's an okay way to meet people?
I mean, 10, 20 years ago, people would tell you no, but now it's so common. I think it is okay. You just have to know what the dangers are, not just dangers to your well-being if you're meeting with somebody, but also to really what most people are after is your money. And people just have to know that. Often people are, they kind of think, oh, I'm afraid of getting attacked, robbed, something like that. But really, they're just, a lot of times these criminals just want to make a living and make lots of money. It's easy money because they're not even really working for it. So people just need to be cognizant of that when they're out there dating and using online platforms, and just use a little due diligence. Look into these people before you meet them. And then after you meet them, treat it like a relationship. You got to get to know them before you're ever going to give somebody your money.
That's
so
great.
that's just something to keep in mind, but it's so common. It's hard to tell people not to do it anymore, because then you're kind of isolating yourself from the rest of the world if you don't.
Right. Well, I did share a bunch of information in the chat, ways to get in touch, both, the Perfect Scam podcast that you can check into through AARP, as well as the Fraud Watch Network helpline information and website. And also, Jarrod gave us some information about reporting crimes, but before we go and say goodbye, because really we could talk about this all day. This is so critically important and people have so many questions about it. But I wanted to go to Jarrod and then Kat, if you could finish out by just a bit of advice you would give your closest family and friends that we could part with. Jarrod, what would be the jewel of advice when dealing in romance that you would suggest people protect themselves with?
Just be cautious. Safeguard your money. Don't give money to people. Even if you think you have a relationship, you might have been talking to them for weeks or months, but do you really know them? Do you really have a relationship? Have you ever met before? And really rely on the closest people, in the real people in your life. Don't be, a lot of times people get very private about their relationships, but if you start to see some warning signs, talk to people that you trust, and I gave many examples of that. But just talk to people you trust and see what they think. Talk to your bank even. Talk to an attorney. Talk to your police. You don't have to report a crime if you think it is. Just say, hey, I call your local, go down to your local police and say, hey, this is going on. I'm just not sure about this person. And they might be able to do a little bit of digging for you if you really think that there might be some warning signs of a scam there. So just rely on other people. Don't isolate yourself. That's what they want. They want you to isolate yourself, and don't do that. You've got real relationships, real people in your life. Don't be afraid to tell them about your online relationship, and maybe they get some advice for you and can help.
Great advice. Great advice. And Kat, what parting advice do you have for everyone?
Yeah, thank you. I would just reiterate everything that Jarrod said. He's so right on with all of it. And if you can become more attuned to that signal that you get when something is a little off, we usually can pick up on this. And often because I don't know, we're trying to be polite, or we're trying to be kind or generous, we sort of deny ourselves and try to be nice to the other person, but it's really there for a reason. It's really important when you notice something's off to verify. So the big thing we always say is verify, verify, verify. That will never hurt you and always help you. So talk to other people, and he listed a bunch of different people you can call to check. Always do that. And if you're in a relationship with someone who's so needy that they're asking you for money, it's probably not going to be a healthy relationship in the long run, especially, if you've known someone for 10 years and they're friends with your family and you know that they really are going through an emergency, that's one thing. But in this case, it's really helpful to know that people are out there hunting for you. They're hunting for victims. And it doesn't mean that you should avoid online dating, but it does mean that you really have to have your guard up and be careful. And there's so many different places to report. I want to let people know that just because you don't hear of these scammers getting caught frequently doesn't mean that law enforcement doesn't want to hear your report. So you might be part of a large class action lawsuit of, this person who scammed many people, and that might be helpful. So they may not investigate your particular crime for a while, or may not be able to get to it, but they still want to know that it happens so that we have that kind of data. So we just really
Kat, oh, sorry.
Yep. The last thing I would just say, Jarrod, is the bi-weekly text alerts that we have. AARP sends you just a reminder. I find this really helpful on my cell phone. Just by texting 3 letters, FWN, Fraud Watch Network, to our number 50757. You can look this up online.
Say it again, because I'm going to put it in the chat. So
actually, it's on the link that you gave. If you go onto our website, you'll find it. So I can look it up when Jarrod's talking. But the idea is that every 2 weeks, you're going to hear about a new scam. And it just takes a couple seconds, and then you know about it. My best friend, I don't say this just because this is my work. My best friend got a call. She thought it was from her bank saying that you have been defrauded. So she thought, this is my bank. I can trust them. They're helping me get out of a fraud. She ended up giving her, going out and getting gift cards to pay these people money to clear her name. 2 credit cards, $7,500 each. She was out the money. And she just had never heard of the gift card scam. I've been doing this for 6 years, and I never told my girlfriend about it. That gift card payment is always fraud. And so what we hope that everyone will do today is to talk about this information when you're at your next, hanging out with your friends or with your family. Make sure you talk about it to help people stay aware. And if you have these little text alerts, It's right there in the chat. FWN goes to 50757. Every couple weeks, you'll hear about a new scam, and it'll help you stay. It'll help burn it into your memory, so that in case this happens to you, your intuition will, you'll recognize it.
That's really great advice. And if everyone who's on here today tells a few people how wide that can spread. So that's really great advice. Thank you, Kat. Jarrod, did you want to say one thing before we wrap up?
Yeah, those were great points, Kat. And I just want to reiterate, AARP has got some great resources for victims, counseling, advice, support, recovery plans. And what Kat had mentioned there is when they're coming back again, saying, hey, we could get you out of this problem. We call that a recovery scam. And it happens in every version of scam. It started off with investment scams. If anyone's ever seen the Wolf of Wall Street, boiler room stock fraud operations, they would come back years later with the same suckers, the same list of victims, and start slamming them to, hey, we got a client that can buy your worthless stock back from you. So this is just an ongoing pervasive problem that's happening with romance fraud too. Like, hey, we know that we could get you out of this problem. It's called a recovery scam. But Kat had mentioned a couple things about reporting, how important it is to report it. It's so true. You can report it to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov, or you can report it to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3, right through the website, right through the internet. Those are great places to report these crimes, and they're very, very helpful, like Kat mentioned. When we get one victim that comes to us, and let's say it's $20,000 loss, that's not something we can really get a lot of criminal charges on, and it's not going to be a heavy crime. But then we start linking up these complaints. It's the same subject moniker, Dave Willis, or it's the same email address that are used all over the country with all these other reported crimes of fraud. We can start connecting dots, believe it or not, very quickly. And next thing we know, it's not 20,000, it's $2 million in loss. And if we identify someone that we can lay federal charges on, we're gonna do that. And that's always our goal. So that was a great point by Kat. Thanks for making that.
Thank you to the both of you. This has just been unbelievably helpful to me. Also, I am texting. I'm going to get that text. I want to be up on it. But thank you, Jarrod. Thank you, Kat. Thank you so much for this important information. Everyone, just remember, be cautious, ask questions, go to your people that are closest to you, report, and use all of these wonderful tools at AARP. They're there to protect you, educate you, and keep you away from these romance scams during the holiday season and beyond. So I appreciate you all being here with us today. We look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Please stay healthy. Happy holidays to everyone. Be safe. Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.